The sun was dipping low when I finally turned off the main highway, the cruiser humming beneath me like an old friend one of those days where the shift just grinds you down, you know? I'd made 2 arrests, spent way too long neck-deep in paperwork, still wearing my uniform, still hoping maybe I'd get home before my wife lost patience and the dog started gnawing the baseboards. I was just dreaming about dinner, maybe helping Emily with her puzzle, and heck, maybe even catching a ball game if I could stay awake. But the minute I pulled onto our street, something in me twisted the kind of feeling you get right before a call goes south. There, in the middle of our yard, my wife stood clutching Emily, who was sobbing so hard her whole body shook, and everything inside me just stopped. I parked on the curb, left the keys in the ignition, didn't even bother shutting the door, just sprinted over, heart pounding. "What happened?" I asked, breathless. My wife looked up, her face pinched and red with anger fear too. "It's gone," she choked out. "That woman from the HOA took it." "Took what?" My brain barely worked. "What do you mean, took it?" She wiped her eyes and spat out. "The monitor she just walked up, snatched it right off the porch while Emily was playing. Said it was an eyesore and left with it like it was her right." I glanced down. Emily's cheeks were streaked with tears, her tiny hands clutching at her chest because her heart monitor wasn't just a gadget. For us, it was the only thing standing between okay and catastrophe. I could feel rage crawling on my spine, but years in law enforcement teach you that rage solves nothing control does. I looked down the block toward Karen Meyer's house, all blinding white paint and perfectly trimmed shrubs, and my wife met my eyes, her voice low. She doesn't know who she's dealing with. I took a deep breath, already moving. She's about to find out. Let me back up a sec, so you get just how deep this goes. Emily was born on a bright, chilly October morning, one of those days you're supposed to remember as perfect. But instead, it was doctors running, alarms blaring, wires and tubes everywhere. We learned about her heart defect in a room that smelled like bleach and dread, congenital, rare, not curable, but manageable, they said. Surgeries will buy us time. Medication too. But real life, the constant hovering, was her new normal. I thought being a sheriff taught me about pressure, about what it feels like when a life hangs by a thread. Turns out, none of that holds a candle to being a father whose world depends on the soft green glow of a heart monitor at 2 a.m. From the day Emily came home, everything revolved around those beeps. They were both lullaby and fire alarm, sometimes the only thing that kept us from losing our minds. Life with a kid like Emily isn't like other families you're always counting, always watching, always measuring how far you are from a hospital or a pharmacy. Emily can't run, can't be outside too long, and absolutely can't be without that monitor for more than a few minutes. To her, it was just her helper. To us, it was the thread that held everything together. And, look, Emilisha Light, a force of joy you wouldn't believe if you saw her smile. She'd sit for hours on that old porch swing, drawing butterflies and making up stories, her monitor always beside her, clipped to her waistband or tucked next to her coloring book. We moved here thinking we'd found the perfect place for her: good schools, decent people, some sense of community. But then came Karen Myers, the HOA president, a woman who ran the neighborhood like a petty dictator, obsessed with rules, order, and the almighty property value. Anything that didn't fit her vision? Instant target. First it was warning letters, medical clutter on the porch. Then citations for blankets left out or visible equipment. We tried explaining, at first politely, that this wasn't Junekit, was life-saving, protected by the ADA, but she just smiled that tight, brittle smile and moved on to the next complaint. We'll let a lot slide. Life's too short to pick every fight. But deep down, I knew it was only a matter of time before that spark caught fire. When Karen crossed our lawn and took Emily's monitor, that was the match. See, that thing tracked her heart, her oxygen, sent alarms to our phones if anything even hinted at trouble. It had saved her LaFino exaggeration more than once, picking up on tiny changes before she even felt sick. Once, the monitor's alarm sent us racing to the ER, and the doctors caught a crisis right as it began. Without it, well, let's just say I'd never take that risk. We worked so hard to make the monitor normal for Emily, even gave it a superhero nickname, so she wouldn't feel different at school or with friends. She never complained, just carried it like a badge of honor. But Karen, she didn't care. All she saw was something that made her neighborhood look less perfect. Every complaint, every confrontation was just another step in her power trip. At HOA meetings, she'd let slip little barbs like, maybe you should consider a neighborhood that's better suited to your family situation. Always in public, always just enough to sting. We had to remind her, more than once, that the law protected Emily, not her petty preferences. The day she took the monitor, it all happened so fast. Emily coloring on the porch, my wife inside fixing a snack, Karen striding up, clipboard in hand, not even bothering to knock. She called the monitor junk, said it made the place look like a hospital. Emily, terrified, tried to explain, it's my helper, but Karen didn't care. She ripped it away, ignored my wife's shouts, and marched off. By the time I got home, Emily's crying had gone from scared to dangerous, her heart racing, breath shallow, the exact thing we were supposed to prevent. I knelt by her, trying to calm her down, but inside I was 1 second away from losing it. I told my wife, stay here. Keep her safe. I'll fix this. I walked down the street, not as a neighbor, not even as a father, but as the sheriff. The badge on my chest wasn't just decoration, no, it was a promise. Neighbors peeked out from behind curtains. Word traveled fast, but I didn't care. Karen wanted a show of power, fine. I'd give her one she wouldn't forget. I knocked on her door loud, sharp, not the neighborly tap. She opened it just a crack, enough to see my uniform. Sheriff, she said, fake calm. I hope you're not here to harass a private citizen. I kept my voice low. You know why I'm here. You took my daughter's medical equipment. You'll return it now. She lifted her chin. That device violates HOA guidelines. I have every right to enforce community standards. I almost laughed, but I held steady. No, you don't. That's federally protected under the ADA. You committed theft and you endangered a child's life. There are consequences for that. Her confidence faltered, just for a second. You're overreacting. Maybe your daughter shouldn't be outside if she's that fragile. That was the last straw. Let's get something straight, I said. You have one chance to hand it over, or I start the arrest process right here, in front of the whole neighborhood. The look on her face that moment when she realized I wasn't bluffing was priceless. She disappeared, came back holding the monitor like it might burn her hands. I didn't mean any harm, she muttered, but I could see her hand shake. I checked it, saw the blinking green light, and the anger and relief tangled in my chest. This isn't over, I said. You'll be hearing from my department. She tried to talk back, but I didn't give her the chance. I turned and walked away, the eyes of the whole neighborhood burning holes in my back. Back at the house, I clipped the monitor on Emily, kissed her forehead, promised her it was all going to be okay. But I knew this wasn't just a family problem anymore. Karen had broken the law, and the law was going to answer. Next morning, I did everything by the book, filed the reports, recused myself from the investigation, handed everything over to my deputies. Charges were pressed: theft, endangerment, federal ADA violation. Word spread like wildfire. By the time Karen got the knock on her door, the whole block knew exactly why. Her arrest was quiet, professional, no drama, no revenge. Just the law, doing what the law is supposed to do. At the next HOA meeting, you could feel the shift. Karen came in, all bravado gone, her allies silent. Parents spoke up. Neighbors who'd never looked us in the eye before came forward. What happened to Emily can't happen to anyone else. The vote to remove Karen was swift and final. She left, shoulders hunched, authority stripped. In the days after, people we barely knew stopped by with words of kindness, offers of help, even apologies for staying silent before. For Emily, it took a while to feel safe, again to believe her porch was hers. Her helper wasn't going anywhere. But slowly things changed. The new HOA president issued a public apology, policies were updated, and neighbors came together in a way I'd always hoped for. Karen's case dragged on, but her power was gone. The real victory wasn't in the charge sit, was in the quiet sense of peace we reclaimed. One night, Emily looked up from her coloring, her monitor quietly humming beside her, and asked, "Daddy, the mean lady can't take my helper anymore, right?" I knelt, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "Not ever again." And you know what? In that moment, I realized we'd gotten back something more important than any verdict. We'd reminded everyone, myself included, that justice doesn't end at the sidewalk. Now I want to know, where do you draw the line between community rules and personal rights? What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Let's talk about it right and wrong, justice and mercy, because stories like this don't just belong to me. They belong to all of us.